In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to take an asset from 3ds Max all the way into the Unreal Engine and how to set up a project inside there. All right. In this case, I'm going to use this weapon rack. Now, if I open up my material editor, rendering, material editor, slate material editor, I can drag over a standard material, assign that, and now I have my object here. I'm just going to go unwrap UVW, open the UV editor. I see that it is completely unwrapped. That is what I want. Just convert that at poly. What I do need to do is, because I'm going to put this into the editor, it'll be good for it to have a second set of UVs for light mapping. So what I'm going to do is hit unwrap UVW again, but now I'm going to change map channel 1 to map channel 2. And so what it's asking me now is it's saying, okay, well, you have all these UVs in UV1, you're going to lose them when you move to 2, right? And that's just only temporary. The UVs that are in 1 will always be there. It's just saying in this instance of working with the unwrap UVW. So what I'm going to actually say is I'm going to say move, because I know every piece I know how this is constructed, so I know every piece is unwrapped. So now I can open the UV editor, and if I click in negative space, so I have nothing selected, and I just scroll down here to Pat Custom. It's not working like I thought it would. I thought I'd be able to come in here and click on this. Maybe I just need to click on this one and hit break. Yep, maybe that'll do it. And break. And break. What I'm doing is I'm just breaking all these to separate them so that they're not all, somehow all these UVs got stitched on top of each other, which is not good. But I know they're unwrapped in here, so this is kind of a weird way for me to do this, because this is highly unusual that these things happen to be all like packed together like this. This is not something I've seen often. All right, let's break that, move him over, break that, move him over. Broken, 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 broken. What's this last one? Oops. Let's turn on select by element here. Is that just that last piece? Yeah, good. It's just that last piece. And so then I just have all these individual pegs. Let's go through and we'll start breaking those. 1, 2. And the reason I'm doing this is, yeah, look at that. Why are they all selected like that? That is just so weird. All right. That makes no sense to me. I don't know why it's like that. I don't even need to move them. I just need to go through individually, grab each element, break it to separate it. And the reason I'm doing this is I could use flatten mapping. If I wanted to, I could go through and flatten map the whole thing. The problem is when you flatten map, it just takes everything and it, based on the direction, right, like 6 sides, it goes through and it separates them into different individual pieces, which is not necessarily what we want here, right? Meaning these are nicely UV unwrapped, so they should make good UVs. So now if I pack custom, there we go. Now everything's packed. If we do select overlap polygons, nothing selected. So let's just pad this a little bit, 0.005. So we'll pad it out a little bit. All right. So it took a tiny amount of time, but we were able to go in. Hopefully when you hit pack custom, it'll just separate everything for you. You could always double check your light maps by saying select overlap polygons and see if they're selectable. All right, so now that's on map channel 2. That's what we want. We're going to right click and say convert to edit poly. Let's put another edit poly on here. And now I'm going to copy the name and I want to export this out. So File, Export selected. And now I'm going to go to the folder that all of my textures and meshes are in. So let's just navigate to that spot. And now I'm going to call this BN_weapon rack and hit save. So let's open up these options. So I'm exporting as an FBX. I want to turn on smoothing groups. All right, let's open up animation and turn off animation. We don't want to be exporting out any animation, not that there should be any. And now we should be good. We'll just hit OK. All right, and then you could save your file because you did that work in it. You don't want to lose it. All right, and now what we're going to do is we're going to go to Unreal. Also, make sure that your wood pieces have been renamed. Here in my folder, you can see there's my wood pieces. They've all been renamed properly. Yours will probably have your initials in front of them as I asked you to do. So this is Unreal, all right? And so after you've set up Unreal, you're just gonna wanna go ahead and click Launch. And that's gonna go ahead and start launching the editor for you. And it's gonna bring up this option to go through and start setting up a map, all right? And so what you want to do is your new project categories, you're going to go to games and say next. And then from there, what you want to do is you're going to set up a third person project. I'm going to click next. Now inside here, if this is your very first time, you want to make sure you have starter content on because there's some nice stuff in there for you to utilize. If you're later projects, you probably don't need to. There's lots of great options in here that you could work and kind of change around. For us, for what we're doing, this is what we want. Blueprint, maximum quality, ray trace disabled, desktop console, and with starter content. You're going to go ahead and specify a location, right? And so let's go ahead and I'm going to call this now Spring 21. Oops. So that's the folder that I want this in. And now I'm just going to do BN_project. Oops. Sorry, I forgot. You just need to give it a folder to go in. So this is the one I want. Now I'm in Spring 21. So select that folder. And then the name is what I want. And I'm going to do the BN_ Spring 21. All right. And now I'm going to say create project. And what that's going to do is it's going to go ahead and copy to that location on my desktop or on my machine. So if you look here, this is what I have. Now I'm in Spring 21. Inside there, the software's going through and it's setting up this folder directory with all these things in it. There's my U project. That's this map that I'm in, or this is the project. The map is inside here under content. It's buried inside there. All right, so now we're in Unreal. So I'm just going to hover down here over this edge, drag this up a little bit. I'm not going to worry about plugins. I'm going to dismiss that. And so inside here, left click and drag allows you to move around. Holding both mouse buttons allows you to pan, and right mouse button just orbits the camera based on its position. So I'm going to come down here to the content browser. And underneath this big green add import button, there's a button that says show or hide source panel. So I'm going to click on that. And this shows me the content directory, which you'll notice if I come over here to my data, UE4 thing, now I'm in Spring, content, see how it matches everything that's the important things, geometry, mannequin, starter content, third person, VP. Those are mirrored here. Now there's some stuff that's system and it's hidden, which is collections and developers. You don't need to worry about those. So what we're going to do now is click on content up here at the top. And we're going to right click and make a new folder. And we're going to call that weapon rack. And then make sure weapon rack is selected here. And now we're going to do add import and go up to this third option, import asset. And so now what we want to do is we want to navigate to that folder that we have our weapon rack in. So I'm just going to click here and copy this path and paste that path in here and hit enter. That navigates me to it. And now I'm going to sort by type. And what I want to find is my BN weapon rack. And I'm going to say open. Now that opens up the FBX import options. So you need to go through and start making some changes because you don't want to do this as default, right? You want to turn off generate missing collision. Click on that little arrow that expands this out. You want to turn off generate light map UVs. And then you want to scroll down in here and you want to turn off on next to material import method. You want to say do not create material and you want to turn off import textures. It seems like those would be great to have, that they would do all this work for you. They actually don't. They kind of do a sloppy job of it. So we're going to do that manually. Now we click import. There's our weapon rack. If we double click on that, that opens up what's called the static mesh editor. Same controls. The left button on your mouse, click and hold to move back and forth. Turn the camera. Hold both to orbit around. Right button just to orbit. And now in here what you see, this is your object. Over on the right you have details. Right? This is, right now it's using the world grid material. That's the default. We're going to need to make a material and we're going to need to bring in the textures to assign to it. So let's just close this. I'm going to set my grid to 100 and just drag this in. You can see there's my weapon rack. If I hit F, that will focus in on what I have selected. Let's raise this up. And you know what? Let's just go ahead and just hit delete on our keyboard to remove it. And we're going to turn off the snap and just drag it in. Because this is a weapon rack, it could sit anywhere. We can go to rotate it around. Right now it's snapping by 10-degree increments. That's basically how you put it into the editor. Now, the next question is how do we get the textures? So we're just going to come back here to import. And we're going to do third option down, import. And then we need to find our wood pieces, right? And yours will probably have your initials and then the name of the wood. So let's do import and bring those in. All right, so I brought in my 3 textures. And you'll notice that it does say that this one with an N, it was imported specially as a normal map. That's because these textures have special types of compression depending on what type they are. And in the case of the wood, it has, the normal maps actually are saved differently. We do need to open up our pack texture, right? Our ambient occlusion, roughness, and metallic. And we're going to turn off sRGB and save it. And that's because it says this should be unchecked if using alpha channels individually as masks. And that's what we are. We're using them individually as masks. We're going to save that. The base color, the normal, we don't change those at all. All right, so next we're going to right click in here and say material, because we're going to make a material. We're going to do M underscore for material, and it'll be wood pieces, and hit enter. So now we have this material sphere. We'll just double click on this. Now this is the material editor inside of Unreal. I'm just going to move this over to the side. By default, it's set up to just do your basic textures, right? Your color, normal, ambient occlusion, roughness, metallic. And all we need to do is just drag these guys in one at a time. Let's make this a little bigger. And now you see how over on the side it says RGB, R, G, and B. Now, some of these textures, you're meant to use the red, green, and blue all together, right? Like the base color. Right? And you can see over on the side it says wood pieces BC base color. That means that RGB is going to just plug right into base color here. Now let's click on the little cube so we see this as a cube now. So now here's our normal. And so we're just going to grab the RGB of the normal and plug that into normal. So you remember a couple seconds ago when we took this pack texture and we turned off sRGB? That's because this is a pack texture, and each one of these channels, red, green, and blue, are used for different things. The red channel gets plugged into ambient occlusion. The green channel gets plugged into roughness, and the blue channel gets plugged into metallic. Now it's the combination of the color, the normal, and these alpha channels, the red, the green, and the blue, that give us the material effect that we're looking for, which in this case is just a very simple wood. So now we'll just hit save because that material is ready to go. And if I open up the weapon rack, I can now adjust it so I can see that material, and I could just drag that into that spot. All right, so there's my wood pieces. They're on my weapon rack, and it looks like the textures don't match for some reason. I don't know why that is. It must be I brought in the wrong textures. Do I have a second set of those? It's possible that I do. I will have to look and see if that is the case, right? Because sometimes you'll bring something in and the textures, if you have more than one file, you can end up with mistakes like this. And probably what happened is I've redone this tutorial so many times that I probably just brought in the wrong one. So hopefully for you, it will go much smoother. All I need to do is just find the correct version of the weapon rack and bring that in. So let me try that. Alternatively, I think what I can do is find the correct textures. All right, so I had another set of textures and I went and brought those in. So what I'm going to do is open up my wood pieces here, and I'm going to select the wood and grab this other one and reassign it. I'm going to grab the packed, or the, let's double click and turn off sRGB and save that. Remove that, save that, and bring him in. And now we can reassign him to ambient occlusion, roughness, metallic. If you're not sure which one, it has to do with how we labeled them. Now we may, and I've been doing it differently in tutorials, it could be O, which same thing, occlusion, and then roughness and metallic. Last thing here, we just need to select our normal and replace the normal. There we go. If I save that, now when we look, everything looks right. There we go. Now it's got those in there. And now when we look over here, it's got our textures on it, and it's all set. So that's basically the process for bringing something in. Hopefully for you, it will go much smoother. You'll repeat the same steps for every other asset that you'll need to be bringing in that is a prop of this nature. Okay.